In this video session, you'll understand how to create your first ASP.NET website using Visual Studio 2010. So let's move to Visual Studio. Now this is one thing you need to understand, that for making your ASP.NET web applications, you need to have Visual Studio installed on your machine. Okay, so this is the Visual Studio startup window which you will see as soon as you'll open Visual Studio 2010. Now you can have a look at both these checkboxes present at the left corner of your screen. The first one is close page after page load, which means that once your project loads, this page would close because it is ticked. And the second one shows show page on startup, which means that as soon as you open Visual Studio 2010, this window or this startup page would be shown to you. In case we untick this particular checkbox, this startup page would not show to us. Now the startup page of Visual Studio 2010 contains latest news regarding .NET Framework, other guidance and resources, and many other things related to .NET Framework. Now, because we have to create a web application, we'll have to select File, move to a new project. This would redirect us to a new project dialog box, and we can select any language we wish to use in our ASP.NET web application. Now, if you look at this, there are 4 different languages provided to us: Visual Basic, Visual C#, Visual C++, and Visual F#. All these 4 languages are .NET compatible, and we can choose any of the languages we wish to choose for making our ASP.NET web application. We'll choose Visual C# here. You can choose any other programming language which is compatible to .NET Framework. So let's do that. And now there are different kinds of applications present inside Visual C# which you can make using ASP.NET. You can look at this. The first one is Windows application, web application, Office, cloud, reporting, SharePoint, Silverlight, test, WCF, and workflow. All these applications can be made using ASP.NET, and the programming language is Visual C#. We'll be making a web application, so we'll be selecting that. So ASP.NET web application. Now if you have a look at all the 3 text boxes, the first one is the name, which is the name of our project which we wish to give, which is Web Application 6. This is the location where our project would be saved, and you can always change the default location to anything you would want to. The third is the solution name, which is also the same as the name of the project. Now we'll understand the difference between a solution and the name of the project in a bit. Let's click OK. Now as soon as you click on OK, you'll be redirected to your environment of making your web application using ASP.NET. So this is the name of your project which you gave to your project, and this is the solution. Now what is a Solution Explorer? A Solution Explorer is a window where you can find all the files which are included inside your project. In case you cannot see Solution Explorer when you open Visual Studio, you can always use that by clicking on View. Inside View, you'll have an option of Solution Explorer. Once you click this option, you will be redirected to the Solution Explorer. So let's close this and try to do this. So let's close our Solution Explorer. And now, if we wish to see Solution Explorer, we'll move to the View tab and click on Solution Explorer. And just look at this, we are redirected to this Solution Explorer window. The Solution Explorer contains all the files which are included inside our project, including the name of the project. And the most important part is that the Solution Explorer can contain more than one project. So you can contain more than one project or multiple projects inside your Solution Explorer. But out of all those multiple projects, one of the projects has to be the main project or the startup project which would start when you will run the application. So this is the name of our project, which is Web Application 6. Now if you'll right click on this particular project name and say open folder in Windows Explorer, now you can look at this. There are two folders present here. The first one is Web Application 6, the other one is also Web Application 6. The difference between both of them is that the second one is the Solution Explorer and the first one is the name of your project. The name of your project has an extension .csproj. Why? Because you have chosen C# as your programming language. So CS stands for C# and proj stands for project. In case you would have selected VB as your programming language, then your project name would have an extension of .vbproj. Similarly, the solution file has an extension .sln. If you right click on the solution file and click on properties, just look at this, Microsoft Visual Studio solution.sln. So this file has an extension .sln. Okay, having understood that, now if you have a look at all these files, there will be two important files present inside your Web Application 6 folder, which are about.aspx and default.aspx. The default file is the file which is presently open in your Visual Studio window. Now, if you have been wondering what this ASPX is, then let me tell you that web forms in ASP.NET have the extension .aspx, and we'll be learning about web forms in a great detail in our next video session. So for now, just understand that the web forms have an extension .aspx. Now this is the default page which is open to us and it is a web form. Now you can see that there are three kinds of tabs present in the top lower left corner in your Visual Studio screen, which is the design, the split and the source mode. In the source mode, you can always see the source coding, which is the coding of your application. In the split mode, you can see the designer view as well as your coding which you did in your ASP.NET web application, and the designer mode will show you the design of your ASP.NET web application. Now we have moved to the designer mode, which shows us the design of our ASP.NET web application. This is the default design which Visual Studio has by default created for all web applications. Now, in case we want to drag and drop a button control in our web application, how we'll do that? For that, you have a toolbox available here which contains all your HTML as well as ASP.NET tools available to you, and you can just drag and drop all your tools from here and drag them to your web application. Another thing you can do is that you can move to the source mode and you can mention the button control or any other control you wish to drag on your web application. For that, you need to know a client programming language such as HTML. If you don't know the client side programming language, you can always drag and drop your controls from the toolbox from here. And in case you don't find the toolbox present inside your current window of Visual Studio, supposedly you don't find toolbox here, then like always you can always move to the View tab and click on the toolbox. You'll find the toolbox here. So as soon as you click on toolbox, you can see the toolbox here present in your Visual Studio window. Now we wish to drag and drop a button control, so we'll simply drag this button control and put it inside our web application. So this is how we drag and drop controls on our web application, which is as simple as dragging and dropping them from the toolbox. Now, in case we want to change the text property of this button control, which means that we don't want this button thing to be displayed on our web application, which is something the client won't understand. So we wish to give it another name, say something like Click Me. So we'll move to the properties window, and where you find the properties window? You find the properties window here at the right corner of your Visual Studio window. But in case you don't find the properties window, either you can select it from the View tab, or you can right click on the control and click Properties, and you'll be redirected to the properties associated with that particular control. Like in this case, all these properties are associated with this button control. So we wish to change the text property of this button control. So we'll change this from button to say something like Click Me. Now as soon as we did that, the text on the button control changes from button to Click Me. Now that's all for how to create your ASP.NET web application. We'll be continuing with this and we'll know more about web forms and the properties of web forms in our next video session.